Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. We are into November. It's November 4th, and we are live here at WCCO every Saturday morning. It's from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. The Minnesota Real Estate Show, hosted by my friends here, Mr. Scott Wohlmering of the Minnesota Real Estate Team, RE/MAX Advantage Plus, Mike Overson, Luminate Home Loans, myself, Ryan O'Neill, with the Minnesota Real Estate Team and RE/MAX Advantage Plus. We are live here every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'm just getting ready to go on to News Talk 830 WCCO. Welcome your questions, comments. That's a lot to talk about this week, real estate, mortgage-wise, and we welcome, again, your comments wherever you're seeing us on a social media stream, or 612-294-6949. 612-294-6949 is how you can join us really at any point. A lot of good stuff to talk about. Good morning there, guys. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Yeah, good to be here. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We got a great show today. We're going to talk, like we always do, about everything that's kind of currently going on in the market, and then what we think is going to happen over the next, few months going into the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024. We're also going to talk a little bit about, if for agents that are watching this, they know this. For a lot of other people, they might not. But there was a lawsuit that's been going on that kind of affects the buy-side transactions, and we'll get into that. It's a complicated deal. We're not going to dive into it too deep, but we will kind of cover what's been going on and what we think is going to happen from it.
And I think Mike's got some good news this week, Mike.
Finally, after 7 weeks in a row here,
lower rates.
I finally got some good news on rates to share with everyone. So we're going to talk about that as well.
Lower rates, indeed. Again, 612-294-6949. Wherever you're seeing us on social media, we're here every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We're downtown Minneapolis at the WCCO studio. And I'm excited to be here on CCO. We're at the 10 a.m. slot now moving forward here. And again, appreciate your comments. 612-294-6949. Mike, a little snapshot, interest rates in the sevens.
In the sevens, I did quote. I quoted most of my rates yesterday, which was Friday, between 7.25% and 7.625.
Oh wow!
So
that's good.
It's significant over the last 8-9 days. We've got a pretty significant rate drop, which is great news for all of us.
Yeah, that is good. That is obviously that's been a huge part, affordability of what's affecting buyers, in our market all across the country, really. So again, first segment of the show, we're going to talk about a real estate update, mortgage in numbers here in the Twin Cities, comparing year-over-year numbers as well. So we're getting ready to go live again on News Talk 830 WCCO. Appreciate you joining us. I hope your weekend's starting out well. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us here. Top of the morning to you. News Talk 830 WCCO. Excited to be here every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. for the Minnesota Real Estate Show. This is a local show. We are live here down at WCCO's studio here every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We talk about real estate, mortgage, current market conditions, and we welcome your questions, comments, thoughts throughout the show. You can always use the CCO talk and text line, of course. And then also for our show, we have a unique number too that comes to us during the show. And then throughout the week, it just comes right to our office. It's 612-294-6949, 612-294-6949 for your questions, your comments, your thoughts. Again, this is a show hosted by Mike Overson of Luminate Home Loans, Scott Wohlmering, and myself, Ryan O'Neill of the Minnesota Real Estate Team and RE/MAX Advantage Plus. Scott, good morning to you there, bud.
Yeah. Good to be here. Sorry, getting my mic on. Good to be here. Appreciate everybody tuning in. If this is the first time you're catching us, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. We do talk everything real estate related and mortgage related as it relates to the Twin Cities market. We're going to talk about kind of what's going on now, what we think is going to happen, wrapping up 2023, and then what we can kind of expect going into 2024. If you've not caught us before, have not gone to our website, it's mnrealestateshow.com. a lot of really cool features there. All of our great partners, you can find out they've been vetted. They've worked with us forever. And then also we've got a new cool feature, of evaluation on your home. Maybe tell them how that works, Ryan.
Yeah. So again, mnrealestateshow.com. If you are a current homeowner, you can just click on the top. It just says get your home value. And it's an ongoing tool that helps you manage the value of your property over time with current market conditions. So it's something kind of unique that we're doing for CCO listeners. So again, be sure to check that out, mnrealestateshow.com. It is November, guys. It's November, and we've got Mr. Mike here in studio. Mike, as we always say, elevates our visual social media stream dramatically. People stay longer watching the social media channels when Mike is on. But Mike, a lot of good news. What's going on in the mortgage world, bud?
Yeah, there's a lot of good news. Finally, after about 7 to 8 weeks in a row here, I finally have good news to share with everyone as far as interest rates go. So if we look back over the last 7 to 8 weeks, a lot of it was all inflation. A lot of it was all on what the Feds are going to do. So when they were talking about, hey, we want to raise rates, during this time span, because we got to try to lower inflation and we got to get that under control and we got to get it to where we want to get it. Finally, this week, they made an announcement on Wednesday saying, hey, we like where inflation is at right now. We don't think we have to raise interest rates, or at least we're not going to raise interest rates at this meeting. We're probably not going to raise them at the next meeting, which is going to be in December. And that caused the market to react positively. So that was Wednesday. Friday, we had a bad jobs report. And for first-time listeners, anything that's kind of bad for the economy is good for interest rates. And so with the bad jobs report for home interest rates, yep. So with a bad jobs report, we got another boost in the market, and that helped lower interest rates even more. So most of the rates that I was quoting just yesterday on Friday were between 7.25% and 7.625. Previous to that, if we go 8-9 days ago, we were at 7.99 to 8.125. So it was a pretty significant drop here recently.
Yeah, it's good. Interesting stuff when you look at it. Guys, we also talk, again, normally in this first segment, just a real estate update as well. And Mike, Scott, you're probably feeling this. We all are feeling this too. New listings in the Twin Cities increased slightly. So 3.2% new numbers of homes went on the market. And that's a year over year comparison. Pending sales down almost 11%. So 11% less accepted purchase agreements. And then the overall inventory of homes is still down 7.5%. So we're at 8,800 homes for sale in the Twin Cities metro area. Last year was like 9,500 plus. And then the last number maybe to share, Mike and Scott, you guys could comment on this. They're talking about rents have fallen nationally. In August, it fell 2.9%, and they said it marked the 16th consecutive month of declines. However, when you look at rent overall, it's gone up. Single-family home rents have increased 30% nationwide since basically the start of COVID. And the last stat to share is that American households are now spending 40% of their income on housing costs. Very high numbers. Guys, thoughts, commentary?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I was actually just talking to a leasing agent the other day, and they said in the last 2 months has been the busiest 2 months that they've had ever. So this is a huge complex that this person runs, and they have no vacancies until December 1st. They have one 2-bedroom apartment available December 1st, and these rents are in the $2,000 to $2,500 range. And so what we saw here with a slowdown in the real estate market because interest rates went to 8%, obviously that kicked a lot of people into the rental pool. But you knew it had to come down at some point. I mean, there's a cap for what people can pay on rent, and when you're paying $2,500 for a 2-bedroom apartment, I mean that's starting to push it.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the stat here. 40% of the income from Americans is going towards housing. If you look at what mortgage companies use for measures on that. The housing debt to income ratio is a measure of the money going towards a housing payment versus your income coming in.
Yep.
Typically, the max you can go up to is around 40% and still get approved. So if you look at that, someone comes to me and says, "Hey, here's the payment I'm comfortable with, or here's the payment that I need to make, and it's 40% of their income." I'm basically telling them, "Look, that you're at the top of your number right now." And so having these interest rates come down over this last week will help that come down a little bit. But we're reaching the Peter principle.
That's right.
It can only go so high before no one can afford it anymore, and then it's just going to stop. So curious to see here what's going to happen in the next couple months.
Yeah, we're up against our first break here at News Talk 830 WCCO. This is the Minnesota Real Estate Show. We are a local real estate team, the Minnesota Real Estate Team. We help people buy homes, sell homes, invest in real estate. We've got a top agent on our team, really all over the state of Minnesota and Western Wisconsin. Welcome your interaction, questions, comments, thoughts at any point at the News Talk and text line, or again at the 612-294-6949 is how to reach us as well. This is WCCO. Thanks for joining us, everybody. With our phones, they always jack the sound on the phones up on us a little bit. Appreciate you joining us, Mike. That's interesting, guys. 40%. What do you think?
Well, I think unfortunately, when you get to numbers like that, I mean, not to be Debbie Downer, but when you get to numbers where people are pushing 40% of their entire income is going to one thing, any hiccup that comes in, one person loses their job, there's a layoff, whatever, it gets a little bit scary when that's there. And I've been saying it for forever that, right now, 8,800 homes is still exceptionally low for inventory, but we're up from about 6,000 homes, 60 days ago?
It's not that much.
Not that much?
It's not that much.
7,000 homes?
It still was closer.
Okay.
Calling the eights, mid eights.
Okay. So you've increased inventory. And my concern has always been when you have a raise in interest rates like this, and then you start to see inventory creep up. If we continue to kind of have this lull, where more homes go on the market, and let's just say an argument, instead of going into the spring market with 7,000 homes on the market, we go into the spring market with 12,000 homes on the market. It's still a seller's market, but we're starting to push a little bit more balanced. And again, if you're a buyer, the next 3 months, you know what you're dealing with. My concern is that if we go into next year and you're a seller or a buyer, that we could see pricing starting to become a factor, because at some point something's got to give, either interest rates or values on homes.
Yeah, it is interesting though. Still looking at those historical inventory numbers, still very, very, very low. And I think that's part of what's driving it is maybe there's not 5 buyers per listing. Now, maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2 different buyers. I know, Scott, you got an offer accepted last night. It happened to be one buyer that was offering, but getting financing with Mike. And that was an example too of this was a out of state national lender that is, again, less desirable. If you're a buyer out there, you want to try to work with someone like Mike or Mike himself, because again, that's what sellers want to see, Mike.
Yeah, local people, someone they know, someone that they know closes on time is a big thing. You never know what you're going to get in a big box store. You might get someone who's very experienced, very good, and close on time, but no one knows that. You might get someone who is their second week on the job.
That's right.
Right. So you just don't know what you get on, the big box store. So working with someone local, someone that has a good reputation here, and someone you can physically go see if you're the contact type of person, certainly helps.
Well, and this was my client, obviously, and she was working with one of the big companies, and so I encouraged her to reach out to Mike. Because listing agents, me included, don't like out-of-state lenders because you don't know if the money's going to show up. You can never talk to anybody. It's a mess. But I think about that when I had that conversation, because it's a hard conversation. She'd already been through approval with another lender. It's a headache. I mean, you got to go through, an application. You got to go through submitting forms. But I feel so strongly about, her working with Mike or somebody local, because it'll save her so many headaches down the road. And that's one of those things where, you got to really trust your real estate agent to take that advice, because no one wants to do it. I mean, she didn't want to go through the whole application process again and whatever, but she understood that it was in her best interest.
We're going back live on air, News Talk 830 WCCO. We got Mike Overson in studio, Illuminate Home Loans, Illuminate Bank. A lot of good stuff local. How many branches of Illuminate are there local? Is it
In Minnesota, there's 5 branches, I believe, here in Minnesota, a couple right across the border in Wisconsin.
Here we go. Welcome back to the second segment of the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Hope your weekend's going well. And we welcome your questions, comments, thoughts, 612-294-6949. We were just talking with Mike Overson, Illuminate Home Loans. Mike, Illuminate Bank as well. Number of branches. What is the difference working with a lender, maybe as a buyer out there, or if you're a seller, having that bank portion? That's important. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So having the bank side of things here, which is nice with us, brings a couple of benefits. So every lender out there can do your standard conventional FHA, VAs, things like that. One thing now that we're a bank that we have is we can do construction loans in-house. So if you're actually looking to buy a lot and build a house, we can provide the construction loan for you for that. If you're looking at buying an existing home and you're self-employed and you don't quite fit into that box, the standard conventional box for FHA or conventional, we have some portfolio products. Portfolio products are basically just loans that we're going to keep on our books. Being that we're going to keep them on our books, we get to make the rules. So if you're, self-employed, you got great credit, you got big down payment, you just don't show that income that the standard conventional loans are looking for on your tax returns, we might be able to help you out with one of our portfolio loans to get you into that house.
Yeah, I had a question come in. Guys, current market tips as a home seller to get my home sold. Tips, what do you think? I've got some thoughts.
Yeah, we've all got thoughts. So tips on getting your home sold. Number one is hire the right person. In this market, like any other market, having someone that can navigate, that understands how to value your home and whatever. So starting with the right person to list it, and then pricing. I know we beat a dead horse to death on this, but pricing in this market is so important. If you miss that number and you're too steep and you're chasing a number as you start to reduce it, you're in a real problem. And so having someone that can really put you in the best position to not be overpriced, but not be weak, still be there, but enough that you're going to appeal to the masses is what you need to do.
Yeah, a couple other thoughts. Again, use professional photography. We've got 2 great partners on MN Real Estate Show. One who often comes on air with us, Adam McIntyre Barn of Nordy Photography, getting professional photography, videography, very important, presenting that, because again, your first showing is online. Nowadays, people are seeing it online. They're seeing it perhaps on social media. So presenting it well. It's also very important, does your agent have a good visual touch? Or does he or she need to bring someone in, perhaps from a staging standpoint, to advise a little bit on decor, on how the home is laid out? You may think it's wonderful. Buyers may think it's not wonderful. And so having that person as well come in to advise is a big part of what an agent does. Scott, anything else coming to mind?
No, I mean, I just go back to, having an agent that can advise you based on what the numbers are telling you. This is not 1998. I mean, we have the information at our fingertips. And so when you list a home, an agent should be able to look at the analytics that come out with the numbers. And so if you list a home and you have 400 saved searches through MLS, that's a very good group. That means there's 400 buyers that are looking for a home that meets your criteria. Now you're great. So you take that 400 people that have looked at it, you should see about 385 to 390 that downloaded it, went in for additional information, looked at photos. That means you're priced right. You're cooking with gasoline. Everybody that's looking at you is interested. You take that same 400 people that looked at it, and you only have 125 people that went in and downloaded the additional information. You don't have to spend 3 weeks on the market trying to figure it out. You've got a problem. People that are looking at you online are not interested in what you're selling. And in this case, you're selling a home. You could be selling a motorcycle, you could be selling whatever. But in this case, you're selling a home and the general public is not interested. So you need to have an agent that is willing to say, look, guys, we don't need to spend 3 weeks. Here's our information. Nobody's saving it as a favorite. Nobody's going to look at additional information. We've got a problem.
Yeah, and again, generally it always comes back to a pricing issue. I was talking to an agent on the team this week about a listing, and it happens to be a personal property, a fix and flip property. They've had 8 showings on the property, and there's really not a lot of feedback that was given. And
I've got the feedback.
Yeah.
It's overpriced.
And it's hard for people to understand. It's like, well, they didn't give me any feedback, Ryan. There's no feedback that, and again,
or the Minnesota nice thing is the feedback is, hey, great house, just didn't fit with this buyer.
Yeah.
Translation, overpriced.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. We really loved like these features, but hey, we're not interested. So that's hard. It's hard but it's important. Have a really good agent that's going to help you from a pricing standpoint. Super important. We are strong believers on this show of working with a good agent on both sides of the transactions, seller, listing side, but also on the buyer side. And in that light, there was a big, the lawsuit, the verdict came out regarding commissions and a conspiracy amongst the National Association of Realtors, large brokers, regarding commissions. And the thought I wanted to share, just so everyone is really clear, is if you are a buyer of real estate in anywhere in the United States, you are paying a commission to have good representation. And it's like anything, if you want to be professionally represented, there is a cost to that. And so,
well, let's be clear though, it's not a full commission. You're paying typically what's called an admin fee, which is a commission to the brokerage.
Well, but also, again, just so people understand, is say there's a 6% commission, that's split up 2 different ways. So there's a listing side commission and a buying side commission. The reality of it is you are paying for that 2.7, 2.5, 3% commission. The way it's structured historically is that the listing broker is through MLS sharing that commission with the buy side broker. But the reality of it, and I think what's going to happen, guys, with the lawsuit is it's going to take, there's going to be appeals. I think this is going to take years to sift itself out. I do believe there is going to be more documentation that is going to come out that's going to help both buyers and sellers understand the costs involved with purchasing or selling real estate. And I think that's part of it that's happening right now. But again, not just because I am in real estate, I really do feel we could do a whole show on the importance of a good buyer's agent and what he or she does to help you as a consumer. And there's a cost for that, Scott.
Yeah, correct. And it's been this way forever. And so basically what the lawsuit came out in just a real quick synopsis is that basically sellers went in and they were mad that they were not told that they are paying the commission for the buying side. So basically, if it's a 6% commission, their part is typically about 3.3%, and the buyer side gets paid 2.7%. And so what the sellers came in and said, well, we basically weren't informed of that, and so we're paying more commission than we should. This should be the responsibility of the buyer. Well, of course, anyone with a mind understands that no buyer is going to pay you $15,000 to so you'd have to come in with a down payment and your closing costs, and then write a check to your agent for 15 grand or whatever the commission is to represent you. Well, no one's going to do that. And so the lawsuit is saying, well, that needs to be split up. And so the buyers need to pay that to their agent. Well, that's not going to happen. And I agree with Ryan. What I think is going to happen is just more disclosures. So the seller understands, okay, Mr. Seller, you have the option of listing at 6%, or you could list at 3%. And then the buyer would have to get an agent. The agent would have, or the client would have to pay that agent. that's not going to happen. And so it'll be interesting. And again, it's really complicated. But that's kind of what it is in a nutshell.
Yeah, we're up against the halfway point here of the Minnesota Real Estate Show. We welcome your questions, comments, thoughts, 612-294-6949. As always, firm believers in getting representation, whether you're buying, whether you're selling a home. You're welcome to join the discussion at any point, 612-294-6949 by phone or text. Hope you're having a great weekend. This is WCCO. Good thoughts, good conversation. Mike, what are your thoughts? The whole commission dispute, the lawsuit. Any quick thoughts to share?
There's so many different ways to look at it. And you could make the argument, technically the buyer is paying for it.
Yep.
If the commissions are part of the price of the house and the buyer is paying that price for the house, who's paying for it?
The buyer.
The buyer's
That's
paying
right.
for
Yeah.
it. The seller's not paying for it. It's like who's actually buying the house. And again, part of that price of that house has the real estate commissions in there. So the buyer's actually paying it. You know what I mean? So there's arguments both ways. It's one of those things where it's just, I'm real curious to see like how it shakes out here.
So mortgage wise, Mike, how does it work? Let's talk one step further. Let's say I'm a first time home buyer and I'm looking to pay, I'm looking to buy a home, and let's say they're offering no commission. So the seller, the listing broker, is offering no commission. So in that case, the buyer, if they're professionally represented, they're saying, okay, how am I going to come up with the 2.5, 2.7, 3%? Can they build that now into the mortgage? Is that an option for people to do? Is that an acceptable closing cost? Because to Scott's point, a lot of people are not going to have the 2.5%, the extra money to do that. So what do you see with that from a mortgage standpoint?
If they have minimum down, there's going to be no way to roll it in. Like
Yeah.
a conventional loan says, look, we'll lend you a max of 97% of the purchase price or the appraisal value, whichever is lower. So let's say you're doing a 97% loan. Well, now I got to pay 2.5% to my buyer's agent. So now I'm going to be at 99.5% of a loan, and they don't allow that.
Sure.
So you can't just roll it in. Now, if you put in 20% down, right? Well, then you just put, 17% down instead of 20% down, and you got your 3% or your 2.5%, whatever that's left over to pay your agent. So you just do a lower down payment on the house, pay your agent with the money that's left over. But for the people who have the minimum down payment, they're just
First
meeting the
time
minimum.
home buyer. Think of how that hurts
They
the
won't be
first
able to
time
do
home
it.
buyer.
Well,
That's kind of the
first
point.
time home buyer, second time home buyer. I mean,
Yeah.
the reality in this is buyers are not going to pay an agent to represent them.
Yeah.
2% of the clients I work with would even consider doing that. Secondly, would have the money to do it. So that's not going to happen. And the other thing that people kind of forget, because we get so into buyer side, listing side, when you list a home at 6%, the 6% commission is, for example, with us, that's Remax Advantage plus is 6%. So we're listing it at 6%. That's our commission. We're agreed, because we're an MLS, to cooperate with cooperating brokers
Sure.
and to split that.
Sure.
But if there's no other agent involved, you're not selling your house for 3%. You're still selling it for 6%. It's just Remax Advantage Plus is keeping the 6%. And so when I look at the nightmare in this, can you imagine, for agents that are listening, imagine having 25 offers on a property and 23 of those are being written by individual people without an agent.
Yeah.
I mean, my good, what a nightmare.
Well,
I mean, do they understand how inspections work? Do they understand how contingencies work? Do they
Yeah.
understand the time frames? I mean, it would be just a complete debacle.
Yeah.
So it's not going to happen. I think what's going to happen, and Ryan and I have talked about this off air, is an additional form that says, as a seller, I agree and I understand that I could list this for 3%, or I could list it for 6%. If I list it for 6%, I agree to pay that commission to the buyer's agent. Now, sellers might be saying, well, why in the world would I do that? Well, I can tell you, because no agent in their right mind is going to show your house if they're not getting paid. So you're going to get way less for your house by trying to cut out that person to represent the other person. And if I'm a person, I want to be represented.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't want to go in and write blind.
The good thing with our brokerage, with the forms that we have, we already disclose that cooperation payment. But the reality of this is nothing is going to happen, in my opinion, very quickly. There are going to be legal appeals. I've heard some people talking about it going to the Supreme Court. None of that happens quickly, but we're going back live on air. Welcome back to the Minnesota Real Estate Show here on WCCO. We hope your weekend is going well, and we appreciate you joining us every Saturday morning, 10 to 11. Wanted to give a shout out for a listing, Ryan Doroti, a great agent on the Minnesota real estate team, Remax Advantage Plus, has one down in Rosemont, 14548 Blackberry Way in Rosemont. It's listed for $385,000. It's 2009 built, 4-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage. It's a single-family home. We've got new LVP flooring in 2021, new soft close kitchen cabinets, granite countertops, subway tile backsplash, dishwasher, sink, and disposal. We got a new washer and dryer, Mike, in 2020, and a big expansive deck, 16 by 24, being built and completed by closing. Rise actually doing an open house today, 12 to 2. He's out there from 12 to 2. Check that one out. 14548 Blackberry Way in Rosemont for $385,000. Again, talking about all kinds of things today. We had a question about home seller tips, about the lawsuit, the big commission lawsuit that came into place as well. A lot of different things going on. The other thing I was thinking, Scott, about just tips, and maybe you guys could talk about this. It is, people forget, I think during COVID, the market was so good that people just assume that everything sells. And what we're seeing a lot right now, I'm hearing from agents, homes that are very dirty, homes that are messy, homes that have just all kinds of extra stuff. And it's sitting. They're sitting longer and longer, and more price reductions, price improvements. And so that may seem obvious, but you need to dial it in, Scott, when you're selling.
Price improvements. I love that. It was price reductions my whole career. Now the last 2 years it's price improvements. But it is true. So if you go back to the first 4 months of 2022, I'll give this example. So I was showing a house in a townhome neighborhood. It would have been the highest sale townhome in there. It was 320,000. Everything else had been at like 290, 300. And we went in, and you could not walk in the house because the smell of cat pee was so strong. All the carpet had to be replaced. The kitchen counters had to be replaced. And again, this was the highest price sale in there. I was like, well, this is crazy. They're never going to get it. And there were 18 offers on it the first day. That's what 2.6% does to people. They're willing to buy it because they're buying a payment. That house right now wouldn't get any offers on it. So it's a different market. You have to put your best foot forward. You have to be appealing, or people will pass.
So Scott, I'm a seller. You come in and you say, if we get this thing shown correctly, right? We get it, the deep clean, we get it all set up the way that I want it. This thing will sell for $350. I come in and say, look, I want to list it at $375 because I think we can get that. And someone coming in, if they don't want to pay $375, they'll just offer me $350 for it.
Yeah, that's that's what the general public thinks is, and you hear it all the time. If you've been in this business, the two things you hear all the time is, well, I don't need to sell, and I can always come down on my price. Those are the thought process that people have. Unfortunately, it's completely incorrect. Of course, you can come down on your price, but you're fighting two things. You're fighting Minnesota nice. People don't write lowball offers in Minnesota. This is not New York. And so you will sit. If you're $10,000 overpriced, you will sit until you've been on the market so long that somebody's like, okay, well, now I'll write. Well, it's a number you're not going to want anyway. So if you look at a bell curve, your first 3 weeks on market, everything is spiking. Your home should be gone during that time period for the highest dollar amount that you can. As soon as you hit that 3 weeks, it drops off like a cliff. Your showings drop off. Okay, we'll reduce it. Well, people don't care. In all the years, and I don't know if Ryan, if you've ever had this happen, I have never in 25 years had somebody come in, look at my house that I have listed, and then said, well, we're interested, but we think you're overpriced. And then we reduce the price or improve the price. And I've ever had anybody come back and buy it. It's human nature. Once you've gone in and you've discounted, I'm not interested in that house, the number doesn't make any sense. You've already mentally said, I'm not interested in it. So I've never had anybody come back and say, oh, now you're 15,000 less. Well, now we're interested.
Yeah, had
It
a
doesn't
nice
work like that.
had a nice comment on social media too. Mr. Joe Mack. Joe's an awesome agent on the Minnesota real estate team, Remax Advantage Plus. He commented, Mike, maybe you can add your thoughts. He just said, Mike, I totally agree. Buyers are paying for all commissions. In my opinion, it should be the other way around on all of this. The buyer's broker should be okay paying the listing agent since that buyer is bringing the money to the table and willing to be the listing commission. Mike, any thoughts to share on that?
I mean, this is how I look at it. Is it's kind of like closing costs, right? So, hey, I'm a buyer. I have enough money for down payment, but I don't have any money for closing costs. So, what do? You say it's a $300,000 house. So, and your closing costs are 10 grand. Hey, Mr. Seller, if I give you $310,000 for this house, will you take 10 grand of that and pay my closing costs for me?
Sure.
Yeah. Seller's going to net their 300,000. Buyer gets their closing costs paid for. So all they're coming to the table with is their down payment money. Everyone wins. The commission thing is the same. It's just like, hey, the listing is 3%, right? So the listing side has the commission from the seller. The buyer has to pay their real estate agent 2.5%. Well, why can't the buyer just go to the seller and say, hey, seller, again, same scenario. You got a $300,000 house here. What happens if I give you $310,000 for their house and you pay my buyer's commission with that? It's the same thing. So really, they're paying for it.
Yeah, it is. We could talk hours and hours on this. Just know that again, I feel this is going to take some time to. There's going to be all kinds of different appeals and such. The short thing for agents that we've been working with is just we're encouraging communicate with your clients, help them understand, focus on customer service, focus on helping them, and just continue to move forward because the years that we've done this show, Scott, there's always, and again, this is a big deal, but there's always something. There's years of short sales, and the world's going to end because of short sales, and then there's bank-owned property. And values are going to fall off the cliff, and Minnesota values are never going to come back again. It's the end of the world. And I think we're at a time, again, with inflation, higher costs of everything. It's an uneasy time. So it's easy to go to the negative. It's easy to feel like the world is ending when it comes to real estate. The reality of it is this is another important item, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, I mean, if you again, cooler heads will prevail in this. I can't imagine a scenario 3 years from now if this goes into place where, again, we have 15 offers on our property. 13 of them are being written by individual buyers that don't have representation. The nightmare that would ensue with that, the general public will push back and say, look, this needs to change. So again, I think it's going to be a disclosure where the seller understands how the commission is being broken up. We already do this as a company, so it's not going to be anything new to us. I don't think it's going to be a major change.
Had another question come in again, 612-294-6949 about buy downs. Mike, are you having many of your clients do buy downs on existing construction or new construction?
Yeah, I would say actually most of them existing and new construction are doing some sort of buy down, especially on the new construction side. You have any builder that's advertising any sort of, lower rate, lower than what the market is out there and stuff, they're paying for a rate buy down. Very common, in today's new construction world to have the builder put a bunch of money towards getting a lower rate for the client so that their payment is lower so they can move their product. So I would say out of the last 30 loans that I've closed, 28 of them probably had some sort of rate buy down with it.
Wow, that's interesting. Scott, we're already up against our final break here at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Again, every Saturday we're here 10 to 11. We're a local real estate team, help people buy homes, sell homes, invest in real estate. We've got our first-time homebuyer seminar and our investment property seminars in Bloomington. We do those live every month. But if you go to mnrealestateshow.com, you can learn more about those. Those are free. There's no cost. We also stream those on social media. This is WCCO. Yeah, good stuff. A lot of good points, Joe. Thanks for your comments. Stephen had a nice comment. Well worth the cost to have it done right. I think people don't. It's an industry that it's hard for people to understand sometimes. What does a buyer's agent do?
Well,
Yeah.
and I just think back. I was thinking about so back in 2001, there was a similar market to this. We had about 11,000 homes on the market. So lots of multiple offers. Rates were I think in the like the mid sixes back then. I can't remember exactly, but so anyways, it was a similar market. And I remember a really nice townhome in Rosemount that I had showed my client, and I could not believe it was still on the market. It was like on the market for 60 days. Well, it was one of the for sale by owner shops, which were real popular then because when things are selling quickly, they kind of come out of the woodwork, and people do it because they think they're saving in commission. But anyways, this particular one had a 1% buyer side payout.
Hmm.
I'd never run into that before. I didn't even notice it
Sure.
until we were writing the purchase agreement. And so of course I've got a buyer rep contract with my client of 2.7%. So for people that don't understand how that works, that means that if the seller is not paying 2.7%, my buyer will make up the difference between in this case, the 1% and the 2.7. Well, they're not going to do that. And so this became this huge deal where the seller would not sell it because she wouldn't pay, 2.7%. And my point is, so this house in a market where it should have been gone in a day for multiple offers and over list price has now sat for 60 days because no agent would write on it. And of course, no buyer is going to pay their agent out of pocket. So this seller really missed the point. It's like, if you've gone to a for sale by owner before, we all have through our years, and they're like, I'm not paying any commission. And they're listed at 300. And you say, well, what if I gave you 330? Would you pay $20,000 in commission? Well, no, I'm not going to pay commission. I'm like, well, you're not. Because your house is 300. I'm giving you 330. So you're not paying any commission. But I'll tell you what, people don't get it. They do not get it.
Yeah, we got a good comment. I'm gonna hit these on air too. Eric and Patty, thank you for your comments. I'm gonna mention those on air too, Scott.
Here's the other thing too is you're somewhat creating a barrier for buyers to get proper representation on a home buy. That's the other thing too. You know what I mean? So it's like you can put this into place if you want to, and you split up the cost. It's just like buyer here, you're responsible for that. You're gonna have to pay for it out of pocket. Seller, you have that. But then to your point, who's gonna pay that?
No
How
one.
many buyers are gonna go out there and be like, I'm gonna do this on my own and not get the representation that they probably should have on something like this to have that watchful eye over them, and then chaos.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, I can't even imagine. I cannot even imagine the cluster that it would be if people were unrepresented in a market like this, where again, where there's 10, 15 offers on stuff. Oh my God.
Then something goes wrong, and then
Yeah.
you have attorneys involved after
Yes.
the fact, and it costs you more for those attorneys to get involved to fix the issue where you could have had a real estate agents involved up front and fixed it, and it would have been cheaper. And
It is
Yeah.
it is an interesting human dynamic though. Again, I go back to that for sale by owner. I will not pay an agent commission. I'm selling my house for $300,000. Okay, great. My commission is $15,000. I tell you what, I'll give you $320,000. You pay $15,000 of commission. You made $5,000 more on your house. Nope, I'm not paying commission. I mean, seriously,
Right.
it's like closing costs. I'm not paying that buyer's closing costs. Well, you're really not, because they're rolling it on top. I'm not
Yeah.
paying their closing costs. I got to pay mine. They can pay their. We hear it all the time.
yeah,
Yeah, we're going back live on air. News Talk 830 WCCO. Appreciate you joining in. Hope your weekend is going well. Here we go. Hey, top of the morning to you. Hope your weekend's going well. The Minnesota Real Estate Show is here, and we've got just two other listings. Wanted to touch on. Steve McDonald has got one in Bloomington, Scott, 8608 Oakland Avenue South for $335,000. It's a Rambler 3-bed, 2-bath home. It's got a great, convenient location close to shopping, restaurants, both downtowns, local parks. It's got a 4-car garage with additional storing, a newer driveway, roof, and mechanicals, and a beautiful sunroom and a maintenance-free deck. 8608 Oakland Avenue. Again, $335,000. Nice price on that one. And our last one, Karen Lunzer. Karen Lunzer has one in St. Paul for $300,000, 1620 Euclid Street, 4-bed, 2-bath. There's 3 bedrooms on one level. It's got a new furnace, newer carpet, lower level, hardwood floors, 2-car garage, and a fenced yard. Check out the photos online for that again. That is 1620 Euclid Avenue South. We've been talking, guys, discussion a little bit about the big lawsuit, and I did want to share just 2 other comments we got on the social media stream. One, Eric Alistad, who's a fellow agent, broker, builder, great guy. He just said, guys, if we want to be a third world country, then yes, this lawsuit is great. We have by far the best system and process in the world to sell a home. He said, I'm half Colombian and they do not have an MLS in Colombia. They pay 2 to 3% commissions, and it's a debacle to sell and find homes. He said it takes way longer. It's a circus. My cousin Alberto, quote, said his brother's girlfriend's aunt Azucena might be selling her house in the next year or 2. You should talk to her. Eric says, good luck changing the best real estate system in the world. It will hurt sellers and buyers. And Patty Zuzek, also fellow agent, broker, a wonderful person as well, said, well described, guys. Thank you so much for covering this. Just an important topic, guys. We could talk endlessly about this, but we really appreciate the comments and such.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things that, again, I agree with Ryan. I think time and in different options. The one option that I cannot see happening is the removal of the buyer agent being paid from the listing side commission. I can't see that happening. I think there's going to be additional disclosures that people are clear. People being the buyer and the seller, everyone understands what's going on here. And for the most part, I think we do that well right now. So I don't think there's going to be a real big change.
Yeah, it is. And again, just maybe, Mike, you can comment on this too from a lending perspective. Super important to have a buyer's agent. Again, you are paying for that service, but there's a lot of things that he or she does. He or she helps you find a property, first of all. It could be through MLS. It could be through non-MLS. It could be through door knocking, sending postcards to specific neighborhoods. Part of your agent's job is to help you do that. Very important. But then further, to write the offer, to know how the offer is structured, to know the contingencies, to know the ins and outs, what's in your best interest as a buyer, and then guiding you through the transaction itself. Very important. Just because you get an accepted purchase agreement doesn't mean it's going to close. Do they have contacts with lenders like Mike to help advise you so you can close? You can get a fair interest rate. Your fees they're charging you are fair. It's so important to have a good buyer's agent always, Mike, and you can comment maybe on a lending side too.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things where if you have a big enough down payment, you'd be able to roll, the buyer's agent's commission into your loan amount. Basically, you're going to be taking, let's say you got 20% down, you're going to take 17% of that and put it down the house. You're going to take 3% and pay your agent with it, right? You're completely fine there. If you're a minimum down buyer, again, if you're doing, a 97% loan against the house, that's the max that you can finance against it. You don't have any room to build in a buyer's commission into that loan amount. So you're kind of creating a barrier then for that particular type of buyer to get into a house by, potentially, having what was claimed in this lawsuit actually go through.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything different than right now. I mean, right now, a seller could say, look, I don't want to pay 6%.
Yeah.
I want to pay your commission
Sure.
of 3.3%. I don't want to pay the buyer's agent. And we would still list the home.
Sure.
I mean, they're the boss. They can say, look, I don't want to pay a buyer's agent. I'm going to pay you. If an agent wants to work with a realtor, they can pay that realtor on their own.
The only
And so the discussion would then be, okay, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, I understand what you're saying. Let's talk about what that means in real dollars in your pocket, because your showing is going to go down by 90%. No agent's going to show it. Any agent that has a buyer rep contract means that their buyer is going to have to pay them regardless, which they're not going to do. And so at the end of the day, the decision 99.99% of the time is that seller is going to say, oh, I understand. Let's list it at this so they get paid. So I make more money. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the bottom line. What makes our clients more money And the system as it's set up right now delivers that. This would not.
Yeah, again, we appreciate you joining us. Hope you enjoy the discussions every week. Mike, last thoughts for our listeners here in the last minute?
I truly believe if you're a buyer out there, the next 3 months is going to be the best time to buy a house if you're looking forward through the next year. So the reason why I say that, we're going to have the seasonal slowdown in the market. So you're going to be competing against less buyers. If you're going to be able to quote unquote get a deal on a house, it's going to be sometime in the next 3 months. Rates just came down 0.75% in the last week. Probably going to continue to slide down just a little bit here over the next couple of weeks. Going to be a great time to buy.
Yeah, Scott, last thoughts?
No, I agree with Mike. I've been telling all my people I've called and said, look, guys, if you're planning on buying next year, buy right now. These next 3 months are going to be, there's blood in the street. And when you're a buyer, that's what you want.
Yeah, I want to give a nice shout out again. Liz Knutson, awesome agent. Ashley Hinneker, Cecilia, Bill Ebert. Thanks for joining us on the social media stream too. We hope your weekend is going well, everybody. Again, if you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, invest in real estate, reach out to the #1 RE/MAX team in Minnesota. We are here to help you and serve you as our customer. Enjoy the rest of this weekend here, everybody. Take care. Thanks for joining us. Been a fun show and lot to talk about, guys. We'll be back next weekend again, next Saturday. And who the Vikes playing tomorrow?
They are playing Atlanta.
Falcons, yeah.
Atlanta, yep. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see with Kirk going down how Viking fans will. My reaction is I think Viking fans are going to be in love with Kirk Cousins because they're going to see what we had and what we're going to be running into.
Yeah, my initial thought was I hope we don't turn into the Packers without Favre or Rodgers.
Yeah,
like that's the feeling that I get happens with this, which will make us appreciate Kirk a lot more. I hope it doesn't go that route. I think we got a good enough supporting cast around Jaron Haltz that we can put up a good fight. I think we can win some of these games, but it'll be interesting.
I mean, he leads in yards, he leads in touchdown passes, and we still think he's a horrible quarterback. It's like he's not a horrible quarterback.
Yeah. Hey, hope you enjoy the show, some of the discussion points. We appreciate your interaction as always. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next Saturday at 10 a.m.